Hello and a very warm welcome. It's 9 PM IST and we are coming to you live from the Wion headquarters in Noida, India. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Will Asia go up in nuclear flames? We focus on the ongoing modernization and the expansion of nuclear arsenals of nuclear-armed countries and get you the bigger picture. That's our top story tonight. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show. We tell you all about a warning about Hamas training for a large-scale invasion of Israel that came less than 3 weeks before the October 7 attack, triggering serious questions. As Sudan continues to suffer, we tell you all about the man-made famine that has affected millions. We also focus on the train collision in India's West Bengal and the multiple questions being raised about what caused the tragic incident. Will Asia go up in nuclear flames? That's our big question today. And we ask that because while the world's attention has been focused on Gaza and Israel, a far more dangerous conflict is being stoked along the Himalayas, the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. A recent report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, or SIPRI, highlights the ongoing modernization and expansion of nuclear arsenals among 9 nuclear-armed countries, including India, Pakistan and China. And according to the Swedish think tank, these nuclear-armed countries have continued to modernize their nuclear arsenals, with several of them deploying new nuclear-capable weapon systems last year. But who has more nuclear bombs? To understand that, we need to take a look at the map of the world. The map on your screen shows the 9 nuclear nations of the world: the US, the UK, France, Israel, Pakistan, India, China, North Korea, and Russia. The nuclear arsenal of the US and Russia is not surprising. After all, they are Cold War era rivals. But today we live in a much more complicated world than during the Cold War, when the nuclear race was limited to 2 superpowers. Now there are many more players in the nuclear arm race. Let's just zoom into Asia. India, China and Pakistan are Asia's 3 nuclear powers, making this part of the world virtually a nuclear tinderbox. For the first time in 25 years, India's nuclear stockpile has crossed that of Pakistan's. You heard that right. According to the new SIPRI report, India now supersedes Pakistan in nuclear weapons race. India's nuclear inventory has grown. Last year, India had 164 warheads. Today, it has 172. For a long time, India was thought to store its nuclear warheads separately from its deployed launchers during peacetime. However, recent reports suggesting that India may be shifting towards mating some of its warheads with their launchers in peacetime. This demonstrated by its deployment of missiles in canisters and conducting sea-based deterrence patrols. What does that tell you? It shows the continuous efforts that India has been making to modernize and expand its nuclear capabilities. It shows New Delhi's efforts to maintain a credible minimum deterrent strategy against regional adversaries. But how many nuclear warheads do Pakistan and China have? Pakistan, another key player in the regional nuclear balance, holds a total of 170 nuclear warheads as of 2024. It maintains consistency from the previous year's figures. Pakistan's nuclear posture is focused on countering India's conventional and nuclear capabilities. Meanwhile, China, with its expanding global influence, has a more substantial nuclear arsenal. As of 2024, China has 500 nuclear warheads in total, including 24 deployed warheads and 476 stored warheads. The Chinese military stockpile has increased to 500 from 410 in 2023. What's more, China is expanding its nuclear arsenal faster than any other country. For the first time, China may also now be deploying a small number of warheads on missiles during peacetime. Let's just return to the nuclear world map once again. What do you see? India, Pakistan and China lie in southern Asia. It's the only place on earth where 3 nuclear-armed states have recently engaged in violent confrontations along their contested borders. Now, let's be clear here. Just because countries make nuclear weapons does not mean they want nuclear war. However, the possibility still exists. Leaders in India, China and Pakistan have consistently emphasized that they view their nuclear arsenals primarily as tools of deterrence. Also, none of the region's leaders take their nuclear programs for granted. Nevertheless, a single nuclear detonation could cause massive destruction. After all, accidents can and do happen, and there is always the potential for human or technical error. The conditions are present for a serious India-Pakistan crisis which could be sparked by just one terror attack. That's scenario 1, India versus Pakistan. It is important to remember here that India and Pakistan have fought 4 conventional wars in 1947, 1965, 1971 and 1991. There have been many skirmishes. If a nuclear war were to break out between the two countries, the consequences would be major and long-lasting, affecting global society. But it is unlikely that either country will start a nuclear war because of a skirmish. While Pakistan has stated it would only use nukes if conventional warfare fails to defend itself, India has a no first-use policy for nuclear weapons. Pakistan cannot also afford only to worry about its border with India. Since the Taliban swept back into power in neighboring Afghanistan, Pakistan is suffering a surge in violence on its own soil. Such violence, along with national political turmoil and economic crisis, only raises concerns about the threats to the safety and security of Pakistan's nuclear enterprise. Let's look at scenario number 2, India versus China. In the midst of the ongoing tensions between the two sides, the possibility of a return to normal relations seems uncertain as of now. Both sides have increased the deployment of powerful military forces near the disputed border, raising the risk of a potential military escalation. With tens of thousands of troops stationed nearby, the likelihood of conventional military escalation has grown significantly. While a full-blown nuclear crisis is still remote, some Indian security officials predict an increase in routine border conflicts as both sides fortify their positions. And let's not forget, the rivalry between China and India extends to the Indian Ocean, where China's expanding naval presence and influence among India's neighboring countries prompted India to seek defense partnerships with countries in the Quad Alliance, consisting of Japan, Australia, and the United States. And amid these tensions, China's advancements in nuclear missiles and surveillance technology are prompting concerns among Indian defense planners. There are fears that China may be developing a first strike capability, adding to the existing strains in the region. And then there is scenario number 3. What happens if Pakistan and China, the all-weather allies so-called, combine their nuclear weapons? Where does that leave India? In the worst-case scenario, Southeast Asia could enter an accelerated nuclear arms race, altering ideas of deterrence, and stability, and this would surely have ripple effects far beyond the region. It's no secret that the recent expansion of China's nuclear arsenal is driven by its goal of achieving great power status. It is driven by the goal of upending the US influence in the Pacific. It is driven by the Chinese President Xi Jinping's belief that nuclear weapons showcase Chinese power in the face of an increasingly hostile United States. China's evolving nuclear forces are oriented towards serving a strategic counterbalance mission, aiming to compel the United States to take a more accommodating stance towards China. Thus, deploying a larger nuclear arsenal would force Washington to genuinely respect Beijing and tread more carefully, both in peacetime and during a crisis. Just have a look at what's happening in Taiwan and the Taiwan Strait. In the end, fire seeks fire. How long before a conflict in the Indo-Pacific leads to conflagration in West Asia? Will the entire continent of Asia go up in flames? Why hasn't Benjamin Netanyahu resigned for betraying Israel? Why are we asking that question? Let me first point your attention towards a document. As per the Cannes public broadcaster, it was put together within the Israel Defense Forces Gaza division. And what does it say? It basically warns that Hamas was training for a large-scale invasion of Israel, during which hostages would be taken. Yes, an Israeli intelligence brief prepared weeks before Hamas's October 7 attack had warned the military officials of the Palestinian group's preparations. Basically, it was a warning about the Hamas plan to attack and take hostages. And now comes the most crucial and the most shocking part. You know when this document was compiled? Less than 3 weeks before October 7. According to the Cannes public broadcaster. So if Israel knew what was on the horizon, if it knew it was to come under attack, why did it not do anything about it? Let's get you more details. The document was titled Detailed Raid Training from End to End. It was circulated on September 19, basically less than 3 weeks before the Hamas attack on October 7. Cannes reported that the brief said Palestinian groups were aiming to take hundreds of hostages. According to Cannes, the brief said the expected number of hostages, 200 to 250 people. So the information was that specific. So what happened then? It was reportedly brought to the attention of at least some senior intelligence officials, but apparently ignored. As per reports, the public broadcaster did not give out details about who may have seen it, but the big question is, why would such a crucial warning be ignored? Reportedly, unnamed security officials told Cannes that the document was brought to the attention of senior intelligence officials, at least within the Gaza division. In its response to the TV report, the IDF reportedly did not acknowledge the document, but said it was investigating the failures that led to what happened and would present them transparently to the public. But then the thing is, what makes this all the more questionable, serious, and shocking is that this comes after multiple other reports in which the military was said to have received and compiled intelligence material and other information pointing to the imminent attack. Israel reportedly had multiple sources of information on Hamas's preparations for an attack in the weeks and even hours ahead of October 7. No wonder then the October 7 attack has been referred to as Israel's biggest intelligence failure. So again, the big question is, why hasn't Netanyahu resigned for betraying Israel? What right does he have to remain in power after this report? Are we saying that this report did not reach the Israeli Prime Minister for almost 3 weeks? Did the military not trust their Prime Minister enough? Shouldn't heads roll for dereliction of duty? You see, this report wasn't written by Netanyahu's enemies for him to be able to criticize it or call it a plot to target him. This is a report by his own military. What could be more embarrassing than that? Let me also tell you about what happened just a few days ago. On the 9th of June, to be specific. The Israeli general in charge of the Gaza Strip area announced his resignation over his role in the failures that led to the Hamas's October 7 attack. In a letter, the head of the Israel Defense Forces Gaza division said to his superiors that on October 7, he failed in his life's mission to protect the Gaza border communities. What about Netanyahu, though? Why should he be immune from taking responsibility? Rosenfeld is only the second senior officer in the IDF to resign over the October 7 attack, by the way, after the chief of the Military Intelligence Directorate announced that he was quitting in April. And in his letter to the head of the Southern Command and the IDF Chief of Staff, Rosenfeld said that he had decided to end his position as commander of the 143rd Division, the Gaza Division, and his service in the IDF. As part of his responsibility as a commander, he added that everyone has to take responsibility for their part. Yes, that is what he said. Everyone has to take responsibility for their part. The question is, what about Netanyahu? Why should he be immune from taking responsibility? Is it a move that indicates the ever-growing partnership with India, or is it aimed at overtly provoking China? Those are the questions doing the rounds over the US delegation's ongoing India visit. Led by Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the US House of Representatives, the ongoing visit by the American delegation has been attracting a lot of attention. The delegation is in Dharamshala in India. Dharamshala in India's Himachal Pradesh is home to the Tibetan government in exile and the spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama. Remember, the Dalai Lama fled Tibet in 1959, and since then, for more than 6 decades, a large Tibetan community led by the Dalai Lama has been living in India. They have established monasteries, temples and schools. The bipartisan US delegation will be meeting the Dalai Lama tomorrow, that is the 19th of June. The Nancy Pelosi-led 7-member delegation is expected to reaffirm America's support for Tibetan autonomy. They will also be holding meetings with Indian business leaders as well as government officials. But the most closely watched meeting, of course, will be the one with the Dalai Lama. The US delegation's visit is not by chance. It is carefully timed. This ongoing visit comes just a week after the US House of Representatives passed a procedural vote for the Resolve Tibet Act. This has now been sent to President Joe Biden for his signature, and it could soon become a law. Here's what this act is all about. The Resolve Tibet Act was first passed by the US House of Representatives in February 2023. Last month, the US Senate cleared it. The bill urges China to negotiate with the Tibetan leadership, and that too without preconditions. It is aimed at resolving the long-standing issues between Tibet and Beijing. China, of course, views the Dalai Lama's actions as anti-China and separatist, quote unquote. China is firmly against the Dalai Lama's meetings with officials of any country. In the past, China has vehemently opposed the Dalai Lama's meetings with US officials and even responded with aggressive statements. And this time around, China has said that it is gravely concerned about the reports. Beijing said that Tibet has always been a part of China. They claim that its affairs are Chinese domestic affairs and that no external influence would ever be allowed. China hasn't just stopped with asking the US to not sign the Tibet bill into a law. It also warned that it will take resolute measures to firmly defend its sovereignty, security, and development interests. Let's just zoom out and look at the developments. For the last few years, ties have remained tense between Beijing and Washington. In fact, a week ago, the G7 countries singled out China for its support to Russia's war against Ukraine, along with a host of other issues. You would already know about the Galwan clashes between Indian and Chinese troops 4 years ago, when an altercation between the Indian and Chinese troops escalated and led to casualties. And amid India's friction with China, US-India ties have only grown stronger in recent years. After all, Washington and New Delhi have a lot in common. From trade to technology to defense, there are multiple avenues of engagement. Just yesterday, there were National Security Advisor level talks between India and the US in New Delhi. It's not surprising then that China would seem ill at ease at least with the American delegation in India. The next 24 hours will tell us a lot more, and we will be tracking those developments very closely. The Hinduja family, one of India's wealthiest, is facing criminal charges in Switzerland for allegedly trafficking and exploiting domestic workers at their Geneva estate. Not just that, they are also accused of spending more on their pet dog than one of their servants. Prosecutors are urging a jail term as long as 5.5 years for them. During the investigation, the prosecutor claimed that one servant was paid $7.84 for an 18-hour-long working day. This was then compared to a budget document called Pets, which mentioned spending over $9,500 on their family dog. That translates to almost $8 per day. The indictment claims the family brought staff from India, confiscated their passports, and forced them to work long hours for low wages, sometimes as little as $8 a day. The lawsuit also claiming no specific working hours mentioned in the contract. This came after a separate 6-year civil case filed by the staff was settled confidentially. The Hinduja family denies the allegations, with their lawyers arguing the workers were treated with respect and their compensation, including stay and food. The prosecutors are building their case on claims of restricted movement, confiscation of passports, and extremely low wages. The defense counters that by stating the total compensation includes food and lodging, and that the long working hour claims are exaggerated. The lawyers said, and I'm quoting, the salary cannot simply be reduced to what they were paid in cash, given their board and lodgings were covered. They highlight a specific staff member who reportedly found the pay good compared to their Indian income and returned to the job willingly. Ajay Hinduja, one of the brothers, denied all allegations, stating that he was shocked at the claims. This was especially with regards to an Indian nanny who he said was like a second mum to his children. He refuted any claims of passport confiscation, saying that it aligns with the Swiss embassy in India. He said that his staff were allowed to come and go as they please, provided at least one of them was home due to security reasons. And on the topic of low wages, he said that it was the Hinduja group's HR department that did all the hiring and contracts. The Hindujas have rubbish charges, and speaking to Wion, the lawyer for the Hindujas termed the indictment as excessive saying it is detached from the legal and factual elements of the case. He said, and I'm quoting, "The prosecutor's contempt shows an unacceptable bias and no other family would have been treated in this way. Our clients remain determined to defend themselves and have confidence in the judicial system." The Hinduja family patriarch, Srichand Hinduja, passed away last year, leaving behind a business empire, the Hinduja Group, with a net worth estimated at $20 billion. The group has diverse holdings across finance, tech, infrastructure and real estate, including prime locations in London. This trial has garnered significant attention due to the wealth and influence of the accused and the potential implications for worker exploitation cases involving high-profile families. A verdict from the Swiss judges is still pending. The biggest hunger crisis in the world is unfolding in Sudan. What's worse is that it is man-made. You heard that right. The phrase "starving to death" takes on a whole new meaning in this African country, where more than half of the country's 45 million people are in urgent need of assistance. They say that as much as 5% of Sudan's population could die of starvation by the end of the year. Sudan is already the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, and now it is slipping towards a humanitarian disaster. How did Sudan get here? Our next report getting you all the details.
Hunger, hot weather, horrors of war. Since a power struggle between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces erupted into civil war last year, Sudan has been plunged into a devastating crisis. Hunger that is threatening millions. Sudan is facing a famine, the world's deadliest in 40 years. With aid deliveries blocked by warring armies, around 756,000 people in Sudan are at risk of catastrophic food shortages. What led to this dire situation? Not bad harvest or climate-induced food scarcity. This famine in Sudan is man-made. A direct consequence of actions by both sides of Sudan's civil war. As a result, an estimated 25.6 million people, that is 54% of the Sudanese population, face critical food shortage. More than 9 million people are in an emergency situation or worse. But this is just the latest projection by 8 agencies. The Sudanese government is military controlled. It has previously denied that there is a famine in the country. The new analysis was done by Rome-based Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, an initiative of UN agencies, regional bodies and aid groups. The data is expected to be incomplete. They blamed security threats, roadblocks and telecommunications outages in Sudan for hindering their ability to do a proper assessment. In Sudan, fighting broke out in the capital Khartoum in April 2023. Since then, it has quickly spread across the country, reigniting ethnic bloodshed in the Darfur region. The war has forced millions of Sudanese people to flee. As of now, the number of people internally displaced in Sudan surpasses 10 million, which means that the country is already experiencing the world's largest displacement crisis. Last month, UN agencies said Sudan was at imminent risk of famine. About 3.6 million children are acutely malnourished. But whether a famine will be declared in Sudan still remains unclear. But if the latest projection for Sudan stands, at least 756,000 people in Sudan will face Phase 5 catastrophe between June and September of this year. This means that Sudan hasn't technically reached widespread famine conditions, but it is still considered a major crisis. Bureau Report Wion, World is One.
In a season of political reverses, Rishi Sunak is facing more bad news on the electoral front. Latest research showing that Sunak could end up as the first serving Prime Minister of the UK to lose his own seat at a general election. Sunak holds a narrow lead of about 7% over Labour in his seat of Richmond and North Allerton. Best for Britain analysis points out that 4 out of 10 voters could vote tactically in the constituency to get the Tories out, and that would mean that Sunak could get defeated if the 11.4% of voters planning to vote Lib Dem and 4.5% Green vote tactically vote for Labour. The research finds that even Liz Truss, Suella Braverman and Priti Patel are at the risk of being defeated. Around a third of people in each of their constituencies are reported to be willing to vote tactically. The analysis claiming that of the estimated 28 sitting cabinet members expected to contest the polls, only 13 will be re-elected should they decide to stand again. Undecided voters represented about 15% of those asked, and the Tories will be pinning their hopes on winning them over. 3 new polls published on Sunday said that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Tory party is headed towards a historic wipeout in the upcoming general polls on the 4th of July. An MRP poll projected the Labour opposition to win a 262-seat majority in the parliament. The same poll said the Conservatives will bag just 72 seats. Another poll, the Opinum survey, showed a 17-point lead for the Labour Party and expects the Tories to trail. The Savanta poll claimed that Prime Minister Sunak's Tories are headed towards what it termed as a total electoral extinction. The unfavourable numbers have furthered the political tensions for the Conservatives. In fact, with the growing internal bickering, polls have measured a worsening situation as far as Tory support is concerned since the Prime Minister announced the surprise elections. And figures suggesting that the Tories are headed to meet their worst political defeat in over 2 decades. Mindful of their imminent defeat, various Conservative members have started, in fact, to warn against an absolute win by the Labour Party. Tory leaders say a commanding majority for Labour will end up in quote-unquote elective dictatorship. Let's now shift our focus to India, where the recent train collision in India's West Bengal raised several questions about the causes behind the tragic incident. Was it due to a technical failure or was it human error? The collision has resulted in the loss of 10 lives, prompting India's top railway safety official to order an investigation. The incident occurred on Monday when the Kanchenjunga Express, a passenger train travelling from Agartala in Tripura to Sialda in Kolkata, was struck from behind by a goods train. And this devastating collision claimed the lives of 10 people, leaving 41 others injured. The outcry over railway safety in India has only intensified in the wake of this tragedy. Visuals from the accident site showed one wagon of the express train suspended in the air. Ambulances and disaster teams were sent to the accident site for rescue efforts. Soon after the accident, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee expressed shock and said that action was being taken urgently. The deceased include the driver and the assistant driver of the goods train and the guard of Kanchenjunga Express. Authorities saying that human error may have led to the crash and a detailed investigation will be conducted. Now, all signs point to a combination of human error as well as signal failure, perhaps. The incident has cast a spotlight, meanwhile, on the regulations as well as the systems in place. You see, under normal circumstances, a train encountering a red signal should stop for 1 minute during the day and 2 minutes at night. It should proceed with extreme caution at speed not exceeding 15 kilometers per hour in good visibility conditions. In poor visibility, it should travel at speed not exceeding 10 kilometers per hour. Still, despite these regulations, the goods train seems to have exceeded the permissible speed, leading to the catastrophic collision. Just to be clear, the exact speed at which the goods train was travelling has not been disclosed by the Railway Board. The Indian Railways yet to comment on the issue specifically. Officially, a probe into the cause of the accident has been initiated, but the incident comes a little over a year after about 288 people were killed in one of India's worst rail crashes in the neighboring state of Odisha. And that too was caused by a signalling error. State-run Indian Railways is the world's fourth largest train network, carrying 13 million people a day. And that is why the top railway official in India, Jayavarma Sinha, who chairs India's railway board, has called for reducing human error, adding that an anti-collision system was being set up nationwide. Football is regarded as the beautiful game, but there is a darker side to it. Hooliganism. The ongoing European Championship in Germany has seen the return of hooliganism that plagued continental football in the early part of this century. England and Serbian fans clashed ahead of their opener on Sunday. The son of the Serbian president was also seen trying to get involved in the brawl. Gelsenkirchen, a city in West Germany, was hosting the 7th match of the tournament between England and Serbia. The streets turned into a war zone ahead of the clash. Scuffles between dozens of fans left blood on the ground. Restaurant glasses were shattered, chairs and tables were upended. Several fans, along with a few officers, were left with severe injuries. Riot police descended on the scene within minutes to break up the fights. German police claiming the violence erupted after England fans attempted to enter a steakhouse full of Serbian supporters. UEFA is also investigating allegations of discriminatory chanting by Serbian fans during England's victory on Sunday. The country's football association has also been charged separately on 2 counts of fan misconduct. 1 England fan and 7 Serbs are facing criminal charges and tournament bans. Footage also emerged of the son of the Serbian president, Danilo Vučić, allegedly trying to plunge into the clashes. He can be seen wrestling with his bodyguards, apparently, who stop him from jumping into the brawl. It is claimed that Vučić had links to Serbian ultras, fanatical supporters who are often associated with hooliganism. In the year 2018, the president's son was pictured in the stands of a football match in Russia with his arms around members of a gang headed by a notorious football hooligan. The violence marks a return to the ugly side of football not seen since fans stormed Wembley in 2021 for the final of the Euros, which were delayed due to COVID-19. The violence marks a return to the ugly side of football. Then, European football has had a checkered history with hooliganism, which peaked in the 1980s and 1990s. There is a difference between fanatical supporters of clubs and national teams and mischief makers who turn up to games drunk and indulge in violence without provocation. English clubs were banned from European competition for 5 years after the Heysel Stadium tragedy claimed the lives of 39 Italian fans ahead of the European Cup final between Liverpool and Juventus. Footballing bodies and the police work together to ensure such incidents are isolated. Here's our take. Go enjoy the match. Cheer in victory, despair in defeat, sure, but it's just a game. A true fan will never resort to violence. And if you want to indulge in vandalism, stay at home. You are not a true fan. Let's now talk about what's happening in Thailand. This week is wrapped up in court cases that could change the country's political future. Our next report telling you more.
Thailand is facing a critical week of 4 court cases that could unleash a political crisis, with the fate of the prime minister and the main opposition hanging in the balance. Thai politics has been defined by decades of struggle between its military-supported, conservative royalist establishment clashing with populist parties like those backed by Thaksin Shinawatra, and now a new and progressive opposition. Each case this week is wrapped up in that tension. Here's what you need to know about them. Prime Minister Sethit Thavisin has been accused by a group of conservative senators of breaching the Constitution when he appointed a former lawyer with a conviction record to his cabinet. He denies wrongdoing. He only took power in August but could face dismissal if the Constitutional Court rules against him. If he is removed from office, a new government must be formed. The court will likely announce the next hearing or verdict date on Tuesday. Thaksin Shinawatra, the influential former premier who was ousted in a 2006 military coup, is to be formally indicted Tuesday in a Bangkok criminal court on several charges, including allegedly insulting the monarchy in a 2015 interview. Criticism of the monarchy is forbidden under Thailand's tough lèse-majesté law, which carries a maximum jail sentence of up to 15 years for each perceived royal insult. After the indictment, the court will then decide whether or not to grant bail to the 74-year-old billionaire politician who denies wrongdoing. Another case could lead to the dissolution of the progressive Move Forward party. The opposition party holds 30% of seats in the lower house after winning last year's closely fought election, but was blocked by conservative lawmakers from forming a government. The Constitutional Court is considering an election commission complaint that alleges the Move Forward party breached the Constitution with an attempt to reform the country's royal insult law. The party denies any wrongdoing. The court is expected to announce the next hearing or verdict date on Tuesday. The Constitutional Court will also rule on Tuesday on a petition challenging the legality of the process to select a new 200-member Senate. If the process is cancelled or delayed, it would temporarily extend the term for the current Senate, which was handpicked by the military after the 2014 coup. Military-appointed lawmakers have been central in determining government formation, including last year's maneuver to block Move Forward from forming a government.
Let's now turn our attention to China's property market crisis. House prices in the country continued their steep decline in the month of May, and this shows the country's strongest measures to prop up the real estate market have failed to rekindle the demand. Take a look at our next report to find out more.
Last month, new home prices in 70 Chinese cities fell 0.71% from April. The latest data marked the largest monthly decline since October 2014. The data does not include state-subsidized housing. Existing property values fell 1% to mark the steepest loss since China began collecting this data in 2011. The price drops were significantly more severe than they had been a year before. The value of both new and used homes fell by 7.5% and 4.3% respectively. Chinese developer stocks index fell after the data. This took the market down 23% from its mid-May peak and further into a bear market. China eased lending regulations and encouraged local governments to purchase unsold properties. This was part of a comprehensive real estate rescue package presented last month to tackle the largest cloud over China's economy. Since then, 3 of China's largest cities, Shenzhen, Guangzhou and Shanghai, have implemented significant measures to make it easier for homeowners to enter the market. Even Beijing, the capital city, has announced several steps. The measures include lowering the down payment requirements and making way for more affordable mortgages. However, investors and experts remain skeptical that these measures will be sufficient. Prices have been falling and discouraging investors due to the glut of homes on the market. House prices that are lower than expected indicate that home buyers' confidence has not improved by the measures. A broad gauge of financing for developers, including loans, bonds, and proceeds from home sales, continued to shrink heavily. Investors will still need to be convinced that the housing slump has reached a turning point for cash-strapped builders. Still, the month of May saw some green shoots emerge. The first significant gain this year was in residential sales, which increased 13.5% from April. This is based on calculations made by Bloomberg using data from the first 5 months of the year. However, market watchers diverge on the outlook. Business Bureau, Wion, World is One.
Time now for Gravitas Recall. If you are a music lover, this name would be more than just familiar to you. Sir James Paul McCartney. He was born on this very day, the 18th of June, in the year 1942. The singer, songwriter and musician who has won millions of hearts. He, of course, gained worldwide fame with the Beatles and is still going strong, by the way, even at the age of 82, with shows expected in Manchester and London this December. He has reportedly become the UK's first billionaire musician, meanwhile. John Lennon's son, Julian, wished Sir Paul McCartney through a social media post marking the Beatles star's 82nd birthday, apart from the heartfelt messages pouring in from fans around the world. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Namaste. Hello, friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on Wion, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, Wion breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe Biden's approval ratings.
The rockets are continuing to be fired by Hamas in Gaza, although at a slower rate than previously.
So, right now, we are with the volunteers from the Aleppo municipality. They are still trying to go to the rescue for the people they can find out.
India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved, 61 people are confirmed dead, and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
For Wion, World is One.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on Wion.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At Wion, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 PM IST, 1 PM GMT.
Wion, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia-Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. Wion, world is one.